Welcome back. This is Become a Bat. We are a chronological look at Batman and Detective Comics all the way at the beginning. My name is Tom.
And I'm Mike.
Today we're going to do Batman number 3, the third issue of Batman, and Detective Comics issue 47. So we're basically just kind of in the thick of things right now.
Yeah, we're almost done with the first volume of the hardcover DC archives of Batman and Detective Comics.
Yeah, I got those archives way back when I was in high school. So those are, like they published them into then like 1999 or 2000. But they've served me well.
Yeah, clearly, we're still using them right now.
If you haven't already, please give us a like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on. It really goes a long way. We appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
All right, so let's start. This is Batman number 3, the first story. I'll let you take it away.
Okay, well, it's called The Strange Case of the Diabolical Puppet Master. It's the September 1940 issue, art by Bob Kane, Jerry Robinson, George Roussos, written by Bill Finger. And this is the simplest Batman cover I've ever seen, but it's really effective. It's solid black with the blue Batman logo on top and Batman and Robin running straight towards you, the reader. But it's very stunning. I like it a lot. And if I could find this book for a good price, I would buy it. Although I'm sure it's like $500,000.
Yeah, it's a simple one, but it gets the job done.
Yeah. I mean, the stories are whatever. They're good. They're not anything amazing. But
Yeah.
that cover, whew.
Yeah, we don't really have any huge debuts this episode. It's just kind of a mystery, actually kind of a morality tale and one about mind control.
Did you notice on the cover of this one, it doesn't just have the little 10-cent circle. It says 10 cents, and then there's a little box underneath it that says 15 cents in Canada.
I didn't on my version because I'm going off the Kindle scans.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, DC has been removing the price from it. So what I got is just a white circle, but
it's just kind of humorous.
Yeah.
That's normal for comic books. Like if you and me, like we started with like more modern comics, they've always said the American price and the Canadian price.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've seen it on these older ones, though.
Mm.
All right, I'm going to read the little blurb on the splash page here because I really like the way these are written. I think they're kind of comical and they kind of set the tone. So it says, Bruce Wayne, bored society playboy by day, avenger of crime by night. This is the way of that strange, mysterious figure known as the Batman. With his young aide, Dick Grayson, called Robin the Boy Wonder, he again matches wits with an evil, all-powerful being able to sway the minds of men. A being who pulls the strings of his human marionettes with mad, skillful fingers. This is the strange case of the Diabolical Puppet Master.
Jerry Robinson was having a field day with that.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, it honestly feels like a narration from an Ed Wood movie or something.
Yeah, I meant Bill Finger, not Jerry Robinson. But yeah, still.
It's so good, though. I like it a lot. And the first panel on this page, because for some reason you have the splash page, and then there's the first panels like in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite panels in the entire issue. It's right on the front page. All right, let's get going. The Batman, cloaked avenger, is prowling the rooftops one night when his keen eyes detect some suspicious activity. He watches a Cossack man come out of nowhere and assault an older man with a cane. Like a mammoth bat, he descends from the rooftop to the two men in the streets below. Landing gracefully, he walks towards the two men, and he hears the older man questioning the Cossack's motive. As soon as Batman chimes in, the Cossack man yells angrily and lashes out with his fists. Batman expertly ducks and dodges the punches. Then as he rises to his feet, he delivers a stunning uppercut to the man's jaw. Suddenly, a car speeds up to them and screeches to a halt. Another Cossack man jumps out and runs over to Batman. Before the Caped Crusader even has time to react, the man delivers a crushing blow to the back of his head with a blackjack. Before Batman can recover, the two men jump into the car and speed away. The older gentleman then reveals himself to be a famous scientist, Dr. Craig. Just Craig. No Craig this or that, just Dr. Craig. Batman questions him about the men that attacked him, and Dr. Craig tells him that he doesn't know the men, but he informs him that they are most likely after his formula for atomic energy, due to its tremendous value in a time of war. Batman scratches his chin, kind of like Adam West, and wonders what to do next, while Dr. Craig goes on his way. As the doctor is walking away, he notices a small scratch on his hand. but chalks it up to the scuffle that he just had. The very next day, as Bruce is walking down the street, he sees two Cossack men from last night heading down an alleyway, and he decides to investigate. He sees another man in the alleyway standing in the doorway, and asks him politely who those two men are. The man informs Bruce that they are puppeteers and that they are putting on a show in the city. Bruce decides to attend.
Weird random thing in the city. Like,
Puppet show?
yeah, like I don't even know how common that would be even back then, but
Yeah, and also the entrance to the puppet show is in an alleyway, like a really sketchy alleyway. That night at the puppet show, Bruce is in the front row, and Robin is hiding in an empty room backstage, waiting to spy on any private conversations between the two Cossacks and the head puppet master, Dmitri, which we'll just probably call the puppet master most of the time.
I forgot he even had a name.
Yeah, they still call him Dmitri a lot. The show ends and Robin hears three men make their way off stage into an adjacent room. He produces a stethoscope, or like in the book they call it something that's like a stethoscope, but it is a stethoscope, and presses it to the wall. On the other side of the wall, the three men discuss their encounter with Batman and the failed attempt to take care of Dr. Craig. They also mention something called the Boss Rifle.
That sounds like a gun from like a first person shooter.
Yeah, some made-up fantasy gun.
Yeah, like a laser gun.
I think it's supposed to be something like that. Robin relays all the information to Bruce, who then suits up as the Batman and heads to Dr. Craig's. As the Cape Crusader makes his way there, Dmitri the Puppet Master monologues to his henchmen about his thought serum and how it acts as a conductor for all of his thought waves, and all it takes is one tiny little scratch from his needle and he can control Dr. Craig's body from halfway across town. He then takes a seat in a large armchair and begins to project his thoughts into Dr. Craig's mind. The doctor wakes up from a deep sleep. Dmitri continues to project his will onto the doctor. He puppeteers the poor man into unlocking his hidden safe, removing the formula for atomic energy, and handing it to his henchmen. Luckily for Dr. Craig, Batman shows up in the nick of time and snatches the formula from him before he can hand it off to Dmitri's thugs. A fight ensues, and Batman, being the force of nature that he is, makes short work of the three men and sends them fleeing back to their boss. Batman takes Dr. Craig back to his secret laboratory, where he and Dick try unsuccessfully to free Dr. Craig from his hypnosis. I'm going to come back to that because were they really successful or unsuccessful? Because they never show what happens.
Well, they say electricity.
I know, but they don't.
But they don't. Yeah.
Yeah, they never show him again.
Yeah.
After many failed attempts, they decide to switch gears and focus their energy on stopping Dmitri from getting his hands on the Boss Rifle, a newly developed top-secret military weapon. Meanwhile, across town, the thugs that Batman put a beatdown on earlier have arrived back at the Puppet Master's hideout, where they inform him that Batman has interfered and ruined his plan to get his hands on the formula. Dmitri is pissed, so he decides to send his men out across the city and have them scratch as many lowlifes and hoodlums as they possibly can with these serum-coated needles. Later that night, the Puppet Master weaves a hypnotic spell that brings a horror of puppet hoodlums and thugs under his control. Batman and Robin race through the underground passage that connects their laboratory with an old abandoned barn that houses the Batplane. It is the Batplane in this one, for sure. The dynamic duo boards the plane and takes off for Metropolis Limited, a shipping company that is shipping out the Voss rifles.
Still no mention of Gotham.
Plenty of Metropolis, though.
But lots of Metropolis.
Yeah. Before they reach their destination, Dimitri's Puppet Man have already attacked the train, using bombs and tear gas to incapacitate the soldiers who are guarding the rifle. Batman and Robin arrive in the Batplane, while the men are about to abscond with the rifles. Batman pilots the plane over the train while Robin hangs from the bottom of the ladder, using the centrifugal force of the plane to knock a whole slew of thugs down. The Dark Knight detective sets his plane to autopilot and jumps onto the top of the train, grabbing a ledge and swinging into the baggage car where he swiftly takes down 4 of the Puppet Master's puppet men. All of a sudden, a man charges up from behind him and scratches him with a serum-coated needle. Then the rest of the puppet men, who have yet to be taken out, start tossing tear gas bombs everywhere, forcing Batman and Robin to flee to the Batplane. Once aboard the plane, Batman presses a button and releases anti-tear gas pellets, which neutralize the gas just in time for the National Guard to show up and apprehend the men. Batman and Robin take off for home, remarking that the Puppet Master is just about finished. Batman touches his face and realizes that one of the men had scratched him, but he is unaware that the thought serum is now coursing through his veins. Back at the lair of the puppet master, one of the thugs managed to escape and made his way back to inform Dmitri, the puppet master, that although they hadn't been successful with their mission, he had managed to scratch Batman with a needle. The mad puppet master begins to fashion a puppet in the image of the Caped Crusader. I'm a little confused here too, because he makes puppets that look like people, and then he plays with them, like a child. But then when he's actually thought controlling them, he doesn't use the puppets. It's like he just makes the puppets because he wants to make the puppets.
Yeah, it's a little unclear, though. It is kind of like voodoo. Like I
Like he has to make the puppet for the thought control to work.
maybe yeah
Then why doesn't he play with the puppet while he's like controlling them?
maybe it's kind of like a fidget cube or something. It helps him visualize what he's doing. He doesn't have to, but
Yeah. I kind of thought that too, but I was like, I feel like they just didn't think it through. But it's still a cool image to see this Batman puppet on strings.
yeah.
The night after the puppet master has finished crafting his bizarre wooden mockery of the Batman, he reaches out telepathically and awakens Bruce Wayne from his sleep. I also thought that was weird because, Batman doesn't really sleep at night.
hmm
Whatever. He tells the hypnotized Batman to steal the jewels from Mortier's jewel shop, and then he dials the police to inform them that Batman is going to break into the shop and rob it. The police are baffled, but they send men to check on it anyways. Dmitri laughs to himself about how Batman will be gunned down like a cheap criminal and disgraced forever. Back at Mortier's, the Batman has finished loading all of the jewels into a handbag when the police arrive. They pull guns on him and tell him to put his hands up. Instead, Batman clocks the closest police officer with the heavy jewel bag and overturns a heavy glass case onto the rest of them. He jumps head first through a window and takes off on foot down the street. Meanwhile, Dick, unable to sleep, gets up and goes to check on Bruce. He discovers that he is gone and that the Batsuit is missing, so he assumes that the Batman went after the puppet master. He then suits up as Robin and follows. Once he arrives at the lair of the puppet master, Robin sees Batman approaching from a distance. He goes after Batman and jokingly accuses him of going after the puppet master alone. Then he spots the handbag from the jewelry store. As soon as he questions Batman about what's in the bag, the hypnotized Batman slaps Robin right across the face and says something about the bag being for his master and how he must obey him. At first, Robin is thrown off. He actually says something about, my best friend just slapped me in the face or something like that,
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
and doesn't understand. But he quickly realizes that Batman must be hypnotized. Normal people don't just spout out words like master and obey. Without a moment's hesitation, the Boy Wonder hauls off and slugs Batman as hard as he can in the jaw, knocking him unconscious. He then throws him over his shoulder and takes him back to the lab to fix him. Moments later, I like how it says moments later, like he had to lug him all the way back to the freaking laboratory.
Batman's got to be heavy too.
Yeah, he's got all that stuff on him
Yeah,
and that costume.
it's a fireman's carry though, so
True. But he's also like half his size.
you know what? That's what the fireman's carry is designed for.
This is true. Moments later, Batman enters the lair of the puppet master, carrying the bag of jewels, and presents it to him. Dmitri is surprised to see Batman alive at all, but takes the jewels anyways. Just then, Batman reveals himself to be fully aware and no longer hypnotized. He proceeds to beat the puppet master down until he lies unconscious on the floor. Then Robin enters the room. We learn that the small electric shock that Batman suggested earlier was indeed the way to break a person out of the puppet master's hypnosis. And then Batman tells him that they need to deliver him to the police and explain the whole situation, because we can't have the police thinking that Batman is a criminal. Bruce says that Batman will never stop fighting crime. The end.
What an end.
What an end it is.
That was actually a really solid issue.
It was.
I think there was more storytelling potential they could have done if they were to remake it. The puppet master doesn't know Batman's secret identity, right?
Right.
But he catches Batman sleeping as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
It would have been a really neat twist because why would he, think suit up Batman? He would just be like Batman, just go to crime.
Like,
It'd be-
imagine Bruce Wayne shows up at his place not dressed as Batman.
Yeah, like the police get to there and they find Bruce Wayne stealing the jewels.
Yeah.
That would have been a cool.
I was kind of
story.
thinking that too, because like when he wakes up Bruce Wayne and all of a sudden Batman's robbing this jewelry store, I was like, what? Is
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne so on autopilot all the time that he just dresses up as Batman at nighttime,
Mhm.
like before he leaves the house? Come
Yeah,
on.
he probably just went on autopilot and just like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, let me get with cowl on.
Also, they do seem to understand what Cossack means this time around,
Yeah,
based on the way they're drawn and stuff and the way they're characterized. But can we have villains that aren't, Cossacks?
Mm,
Like,
I
can we
think.
just have some generic gangsters or something?
Well, this could have easily been like a voodoo thing,
Yeah,
and it
true.
could have probably aged a lot worse. So,
Yeah, that's
um,
a good point. I also love the heavy use of dark oranges and reds for the backgrounds in this issue.
mhm.
They did so much more of that in this issue than they've done ever, and it looks stunning.
Yeah, it looks like it came out way later than it did.
Yeah, and part of that is the fact that like contrasting colors always pop.
Mhm,
McFarlane does that a lot with Spawn because Spawn's outfit is red and his
mhm,
highlighting color of his powers is green, and it looks amazing.
yeah,
So seeing the oranges and the blues is just like jumps off the page at you.
like it really reminds me of like a Halloween pale.
Yeah, it was really cool looking issue. Um, Another thing too, this issue felt a little more like those older issues too, like the Mad Monk and like the
Mhm,
Hugo Strange, which is cool because I really like that style of like pulp Batman,
yeah,
but it feels like that with better artwork.
mhm,
I have some more stuff I want to talk about, but why don't you get into some of your thoughts too?
yeah. Well, I really want to know what how Robin knew just the right amount of electric shock. They gloss over what happened there.
Yeah,
I definitely want to see that situation. Just him sitting there. He's got Batman knocked out. He's got like these electrodes. He's like, okay, I don't know much about electricity. Is this too much? Is it not enough? And
yeah.
just him having to just do basically Russian roulette
Just shock him a
to
couple
shock him.
times
Yeah.
until he comes out of it. Well, it makes me wonder, like, did they actually try the electricity on that other guy who was hypnotized and it worked? So then they knew already how much to use, or did they use too much and it killed that guy, and that's why he never shows up again?
Maybe. Yeah. Like that could have happened.
Yeah.
The other thing I also had thought about Dimitri, he went around and he hypnotized a bunch of random people in Gotham, right?
Hmm.
Or New York,
Yeah.
and had them carry out the plan on the train, right?
Right.
So Batman and Robin, they know that they're just hypnotized people. They don't like go out murdering them or anything like that, but they beat them and then let the cops or the National Guard or whoever, it looked like the Rangers,
Hmm.
come in and arrest them. The Rangers aren't going to know that they were just hypnotized.
Yeah.
They're actually innocent people. So all these people that the Cossack had put in his plan, like they went away for years for something that they had no idea they were doing.
They're innocent of those crimes,
Yeah.
but Batman probably still wouldn't care because he did go out of his way to pick lowlifes and criminals to scratch, right? All those people that are hypnotized and committing this crime are people that Batman probably would have put away anyways.
Yeah, but this for crime they didn't commit. It's still wrong. It's still an injustice.
It is, but the Batman of this era doesn't seem to care about that all that much.
Well, he's that still sucks.
I know. I was thinking that too, and I was like, yeah, well, I think Batman would still say good riddance at this
But
point.
you know what though? It's Gotham, so
Yeah.
or it's New York,
Yeah,
so they're probably going to be back on the street within days anyway.
probably.
They didn't kill anybody.
I'm sure they'll end up in jail, and then they'll get out of that hypnosis and be like, why am I in jail?
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. Puppet Master is a pretty interesting villain. I feel like he could have come back. It would be interesting to see a character with the same kind of skill set or whatever in modern comics. I
Yeah,
think pretty much all these original villains have really interesting power sets or.
he would make a great Suicide Squad like operator.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like not one of the guys who goes in, but basically like it could be really good for like subterfuge or espionage. Like
Mhm.
you could take out a world leader by scratching one of his soldiers
Yeah.
and having him, just go in there
Right.
and murder him.
That's exactly what I was
Yeah.
thinking. I was like, why is he wasting his time
Yeah.
trying to steal freaking money?
He doesn't need. Well, he
He
was trying to get the gun, but still,
But
like,
still, he was going to steal the gun
Yeah.
so that he could sell the gun to warring nations so they could kill each other.
yeah,
Like, dude, you could hypnotize anybody you want with a small scratch from a needle. Why
Yeah.
don't you just like have a bunch of thugs go out and scratch really important world leaders and then control the world from your lair?
yeah. Batman didn't even realize what was going on. Like he knew they were being hypnotized, but like it took Robin to figure out what it was.
Yeah.
So
It's funny though. I feel like that's the first time Batman's ever been scratched. He's
yeah,
been shot, but he's never been scratched before.
Mm,
He's never like, oh, I have a scratch.
yeah.
You know,
He gets hit in the head a lot.
he does. He gets beaten on and shot, but he never been scratched.
I don't know. Well, he usually fights gangsters who aren't going to be out there with claws.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I also thought it was really cool, and I'm sure you agree, seeing Robin deck Batman in the face after getting slapped.
That was a couple of my panels.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we picked all the same panels for this, except
Yeah.
I added 2 that you didn't already have in here.
I put in. So I took the panel of the one you did. I just put that in there because I knew, okay, you're gonna put that one in there
Oh, of
anyway.
course. Yeah, how could I not pick that one? That's
Yeah,
the best panel.
just describe it because it's a good one.
Yeah, it's almost like cover worthy, and honestly, it looks a lot like one of the previous covers. It looks like 2 of the previous covers, because it's Batman standing on a rooftop, the chimney's behind him, the full moon, there's bats flying past the full moon, and there's fog flitting through the night sky. The sky is like this dark maroonish orange, and Batman's throwing his cape across his body like he's Dracula. And then the little box says, "As night falls like a shroud over the city, a cloaked figure merges with the protecting shadows and becomes a gliding shape of darkness." How can you not love that?
I also really like the way that Batman's shadow was on the chimney
They do a phenomenal job with
behind.
shadows in these next 2
Yeah,
issues.
and then just like the lighting of the cracks
Mhm.
in the not the cracks, but like the bricks
Yeah, like
in
the
between the
border of the
bricks.
bricks. It's very Frank Miller.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
just beautiful.
I know. They do such a good job with shadows in this. It makes me wonder if they're gonna keep up with the shadows until the tone of the book gets lighter, or if this was just like an experiment, but I loved it.
Yeah.
Every panel has like these crazy dark shadows being cast by Batman and
Mhm.
Robin and the thugs, and most of his shadows have his ears and his cape, and they look really
Yeah.
sinister. And I also picked this one where it's really simple. I just like it a lot. Also, it does the negative space thing with the bricks.
Mhm.
And it's just Batman and Robin booking it down an orange hallway that has red carpet. And it says, "The 2 figures race along an underground passage beneath the Wayne's home." It's just cool to see the passage
Yeah.
instead of it just like cutting to them being in their laboratory.
And that's gonna return in the Detective Comics issue that we are gonna talk about today.
Yep. Because they're sort of starting to create the Batcave. They just haven't
Mhm.
called it the Batcave yet. They're calling it his secret laboratory
Yeah.
or his lair.
His lair.
Yeah. Which I like the fact that they call it the lair and the laboratory because that's like a villain thing.
Yeah.
Having a secret lair and a secret lab.
Mhm.
And then I picked this other panel. It's similar to the first panel I picked just because it has the full moon, the orange sky, the black silhouetted buildings. I just like the posing on this one a lot. Batman's kind of doing this weird like jump with his elbow, like he's about to elbow drop somebody. And then he's like, "First stop, Dr. Craig." But then the dialogue again in the box is really, really awesome. It says, "Like some grim, silent ghost, a dark form steps through the night. The Batman is again on the prowl."
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for those.
Yeah.
You want to go over your panels here?
Yeah, so the next one I chose is it's another one of those circles. They're like getting experimental with these circles here.
Yeah, I noticed this is the second one we've seen so far.
Yeah. I think there was another
Might be
one.
the third one actually.
Dimitri the Puppet Master is in the center and it's his head,
Mm-hmm.
and then next to his head are his 2 hands and they're pointing down as if controlling the strings.
Yeah, he's like sweating profusely.
He's like sweating profusely and he's got this deranged look on his face, and all around him are visions of the people he's hypnotized, just like kind of snapping into it, or like what they're doing. Like one's in a car, there's a boat, but like otherwise it's just like people like sitting or standing there, and they're like
Yeah.
they got this like what look on their face.
I like all the lines radiating out of their heads.
Yeah,
And then it says, "That night, the puppet master weaves a hypnotic spell that brings a horde of puppet hoodlums under his sway." I like the puppet hoodlums.
hmm
Puppet men, puppet master, puppet
Mhm.
hoodlums.
yeah. So the next one I chose, we talked about earlier, where Batman slapped Robin when he's under hypnosis,
Yeah.
and mostly just because like that's Batman slapping Robin.
This is the first time this happens, I think,
Yeah.
but it happens a lot afterwards.
And yeah, it reminded me of the very famous meme picture of Batman
Yeah.
slapping Robin in The World's Finest, which
Yeah.
you sent me that issue
Oh,
to finally
such a
read,
good issue.
which we might have to cover that in like a bonus Bat
I would love
episode.
to. I love all those weird, like, offshoot, non-canon issues like
Yeah.
that. They're so
Well,
fun.
it's so insane, that story.
Yeah,
But
it's
okay,
great.
let's continue on. So the next panel is Robin realizing what's going on and him punching Batman back.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's punching him in the neck.
Yeah, it looks like he's punching him in the freaking throat, but it says
Yeah.
that he hits him in his unprotected jaw.
You see the little lines of like action lines on
Yeah.
the jaw. The perspective makes it seems like he punched him in the neck, but I think it's just like it going past the jaw.
Mm-hmm.
This hurts me more than it does you, but it's got to be done.
Yeah, I like how Batman's already dropping. It's
Mhm.
almost like Robin had to jump to hit him in the face, and then he landed, and then Batman's starting to drop after he landed.
Yeah. Well, Batman's taught him well if he's able to just knock out Batman with one hit.
Right? Not anyone can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts on this issue?
No, I like this issue a lot. I wish they had thought of something more creative, like, to use the villain for, because it is a really good, like, villain power set.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so much potential there, and they did an okay job with it, but they could have done so much more with it,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's also other villains like this. I mean, there's Starro. I don't. He wasn't in the comics, but Music Meister.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hypnotism villains, but
Isn't there a villain called Pipe Piper or something too?
this Flash villain, yeah,
Yeah.
yep. So,
But this could have been this was the first one, and
yeah,
it could have been the best one, so.
he's definitely another one of those forgotten characters that they could bring back easily.
I feel like Batman comic books, whether or not the villain becomes a recurring villain, they create the archetypes that every other superhero comic uses from that point on,
Hmm.
you know?
All right. So we'll get back and after the break and do Detective Comics number 47. Holy Bats, we are back. So we are going to do Detective Comics number 47. Money Can't Buy Happiness.
Did you say holy bats this time?
I did.
Okay.
So this issue was published January 1941. Art by Bob Kane, Jerry Robinson, George Russos. Written by Bill Finger. So the cover on this one is in the spotlight. It's Robin swinging on a like a hook rope. I don't know what kind of rope. I mean, it's something to carry like cargo or something.
Yeah.
But he's swinging. He's taking out two thugs at once. One of them, his hat's fallen off. The other one was the one holding the gun.
They're changing it up a little this
Yeah,
time.
yep. And Batman is in the forefront. He's facing the audience, but he's looking back. So it's like a 3/4 view of his face, just looking at smiling at Robin's handiwork.
Yeah, if there was like a thought balloon or like a blurb coming out of him, it would just say LOL.
Yeah, great job, Robin.
Yeah.
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 All right. And I love Batman. We were talking about Batman's cowl, like his ears in this.
Mhm.
His ears remind me of like a sunflower seed, like
Yeah.
this style.
I just like when this ears. I mean, I it's not my favorite version of Batman, but I have a soft spot for the way he's drawn in this era, like
Yeah.
with the goofy looking cat ears.
This is the stuff basically that they were drawing from when they did the Batman 66 TV show.
For sure. You can definitely tell.
Yeah.
Like in the last issue where he's holding his chin in that close up,
Mm-hmm.
Adam West does that in every single episode, like over and over and over again.
Yep.
So I wonder if we're going to see more of that in these issues. Yeah, I want to read the little splash page blurb on this one again, just because I really like the way these are written.
Go for it.
It says, all the world knows of the Batman. He is a creation of the night, elusive as a smear of smoke, dangerous as a striking panther. It is he and his daring young aide, Robin, the boy wonder, who by their wits and their thundering fists wage unceasing war against crime and bring justice where it has never been before. Epic.
It's a lot.
It is a mouthful. A lot of ... comma.
Just a lot for a guy who just beats up criminals.
Yeah, but it's great.
Yeah. All right. The story begins as Batman is on top of a truck with a gangster held above his arms. He throws the man at the rest of his cohorts. The men are all taken out just in time for the police to arrive. Batman makes his exit. He swings across and out of the city and makes his way to a deserted barn in the middle of nowhere. Inside the barn is a secret tunnel that leads all the way to Bruce Wayne's home. Bruce unsuits and asks his trusty ward if anyone's given him a call. Dick tells Bruce that Harvey Midas, Bruce's banker, called to give Bruce the annual report on his holdings. The next morning, Bruce visits Midas's office. They exchange pleasantries and try to get to business when the door bursts open and they're interrupted by Midas's son, Roger. Roger asks if his dad wants to go to the football game, but Midas says he's too busy. Midas is all about the money. Bruce hears Roger's disappointment. So Bruce thinks to himself, like, I wouldn't let that interrupt me, spending time with my son. So, anyways, rather than spending time with his son, Bruce gets in his bat suit and he starts to spy on Midas's family.
Although, I know Robin is like his best friend, but does he really consider him his son yet at this point in the
not,
comics?
not at this point, no.
Because I feel like they also make a point of talking about that in modern Batman, where it's like Dick is his brother, Jason was his son, you know, and then obviously Damien's his son too. But
Yeah, but also like on paper, Bruce had to adopt him, so
well, yeah,
he's his
to
legal son.
everybody else he's his son.
Yeah.
To him he's his brother.
You know, I've always wondered,
What?
as an aside,
What?
um, how did Bruce Wayne deal with the adoption, not adoption, like with Damien, like to the world? Do people think he's an adoption baby? Or does he tell the world that he's like his biological son? And how does he explain the mother situation?
I think he just tells everybody he's his biological son, and that he's just like, yeah, they hid him from me for years.
Mm,
But otherwise, he could just throw money at it. He
yeah.
can just throw money at any problem because he's got so much of it.
Yeah. If you know the answer, let us know on Twitter at Become a Bat Pod. I mean, I could just look it up on Wikipedia, sure,
Yeah,
but
that's a good plug.
whatever. Yeah,
Somebody, please.
yeah. Something I've been wondering. All right, so where was I in here? So he's curious about the Midas family. Surely there's an easier way of doing this. He looks through a window and he sees Midas's wife and daughter, Diane. They're talking when the butler. They don't name Midas's wife in this. They name Diane later on. Anyway, it gets confusing when they don't say like their names immediately. So they're talking when the butler busts in and tells Diane that her boyfriend Johnny Brown is on the phone for her. Midas's wife doesn't like the idea of her daughter dating a mere poor banking clerk. Sometime later, Bruce visits a club and he's keeping an eye on Roger. Roger appears to be an avid gambler as well as a very skilled clarinet player. Bruce invites Roger over to a drink and compliments his musical skills. Roger tells Bruce that he's always wanted to start his own orchestra. Sometime after that, the society papers report that Diane Midas makes her grand debut. She's married to some defunct European count named Alexis instead of Johnny Brown. She knows that he's only in it for the money. Bruce is at home and he wonders about the situation. He's sympathetic to the plight that Midas's son and daughter are in. That night, Batman goes out and he finds Roger. And Roger's got a couple of like low-life friends or whatever. And they get him drunk. They're about to take him gambling at some gala. For whatever reason, Roger gets in the driver's seat. Batman makes his appearance known and this spooks them. Roger hits the gas and he speeds off. Unfortunately, a newsboy is in the way and he's in the middle of the street and Roger hits him with the car and they keep driving off.
Did you notice that it said he was tipsy too?
Yeah.
He's a drunk driver and he hit a kid.
Yep. Hit and run. Yeah. They do a hit and run. They keep going off. They're afraid to get arrested. So the news of the hit and run makes the paper. The boy survived, but he's crippled. The authorities don't know the identity of the driver. So Roger visits his father and he reveals that he was the one who was driving that car and hit a kid. And his associates, they're blackmailing him to keep them quiet. Just then, Batman interrupts them and he tells Roger that he should confess himself. Midas yells at Batman to get out. So at the same time, Robin is spying on Diane and overhears her and her husband having a conversation on the floor below. Diane says that she's leaving for Reno the next morning, and Alexis says that she can't divorce him. So side note, I don't know if you know this or not, like back then in the 40s, divorce was like really difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the few places you could actually go and get a like good divorce, like actual divorce in America was Reno, Nevada.
Really?
Yeah, just something about the way the laws were. You had to live there for a certain amount of time and then you could just go and sign a divorce paper and it's like, you're done.
Weird.
Yeah, so there were whole communities of people just living in Reno just so they could.
Divorce communities.
That's exactly what it was.
That's good.
That's a history fact, in case you were wondering why she said Reno specifically.
Yeah, it kind of was actually.
She storms out the room and he realizes that he won't have any income if they get divorced. So he gets into his car and he drives off. He's unaware that Robin is stowed in the back of the car. Alexis meets up with two of his men and they plot to kill Diane and steal their family jewel.
This is all her dad's fault. He's like,
Yep.
You can't marry this broke guy that I hired, but you can marry this broke guy that I want you to marry. They don't realize that he's broke.
Yep. It's more about the prestige than the actual money. Robin reports this to Batman. Alexis is going to have Diane murdered at 8 p.m. that day, and Roger is going to pay off the blackmailers at 10 p.m. So, right before 8, Batman pays Alexis a little visit and knocks him clean out with one punch. They hear his men come in and make quick work of them as they enter in. Midas and his wife walk in and see Alexis has been attacked and ask Batman what's going on. Batman explains the situation, and one of Alexis's cohorts backs up Batman's story. Batman asks Midas if he's still intending to pay the blackmailers off, which he says he is. Batman and Robin leave, but secretly hitch a ride on top of Midas's car. They get to the blackmailer's location. Midas is about to do the exchange when suddenly Batman bursts in through the door and they fight the blackmailers. The blackmailers start to escape through a window and one shoots Roger. Batman and Robin make chase at a couple of the men who go in two different directions. Robin chases after one of them on the rooftops. He latches a rope on the flagpole and swings up, and he knocks his prey down with the momentum. Batman chases the other guy down into a car. Batman knocks the guy in the back of the head, knocking him out. Batman jumps out of the car, and the guy crashes into the power pole, killing the driver. There's no way he lived after that. Like, he's dead.
Yeah, this is like this 5th time he's done this, too.
Mhm.
Also, he like punched his face into a windshield.
Yeah. I don't have to kill you, but
I don't have to save you either.
I don't have to make sure you don't have to be conscious when you're driving this car.
You don't have to be conscious when your car explodes and you die.
Batman and Robin return to Midas and Roger, and Batman takes Roger to a doctor. Midas offers to pay any price to save Roger. The doctor tells him that Roger's life is now in God's hands.
He says that without actually saying that. He says it's like a higher power or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
what he's going for.
I know. I just like how they don't actually say that. They like allude to it.
Well, you know what? It is Earth 2. It's a DC universe. The higher power could be Superman.
Or Zeus.
It could be not this. It can't be Shazam in this. He's not in this universe.
No, but it could be anything.
Yeah, it could be anything. So, sometime later, the gods come out. The gods. Sometime later, the doctor comes out and tells him that Roger is going to pull through. So a little bit later, they're in court. The judge is perplexed at the parents of the kid that Roger had hit and run. They decided to drop the charges against Roger. They explain that Midas paid for specialists to operate and restore his mobility, as well as granting him a trust fund for college. Roger says that he's still willing to take his punishment. The judge states that he's made his restitution and he dismisses the case. Bruce visits Midas, asking about his holdings, when Midas tells Bruce that he's going to have to wait. He's taking his son out to a football game. Roger tells Bruce to listen to the radio that night to hear his orchestra play. Incidentally, Midas's wife tells Diane to hurry. They can't keep Johnny Brown waiting. It seems that in this fantasy world, the rich are able to swallow their pride and change for the better.
Right?
The end.
Oh, your son gets drunk and runs over a newsboy. No big deal. Just, hire a doctor and give them tons of money. Everything's fine. You won't go to jail.
Yeah. Like, okay, so my thought on this is like, yeah, it's a morality tale. Like, yeah, okay. Just because you have a ton of money doesn't mean like it buys the happiness. You got to like spend time with your family.
I mean, that is like the title of the issue, right? Like money can't buy you happiness.
Yeah. But money can buy you out of trouble.
Right. Money can't buy you happiness, but it can keep you out of jail.
Like, he's just lucky that the kid didn't die.
Yeah.
But even then, in the real world, he would have just basically paid a fine and just did like a few years probation to be fine.
I honestly thought the kid was going to die.
Me too, yeah.
Because that's the nature of these early Batman stories.
Mm-hmm.
You got to look at this, by the way. Look at the way the guns are drawn on this first page. It's like whoever drew it didn't know how to draw a gun. They look really science fiction-y.
A little bit, yeah.
Like they have no hammers and they're really rounded in the back. Like
it reminds me of what was that? The Destoval from GoldenEye.
Yeah, I can kind of see that actually.
Yeah, just that like very silvery round gun.
Mm-hmm. Also, in the previous episode, we were noting how Bruce Wayne is starting to develop his Playboy persona. This, I think, is the definitive issue where he's been labeled as a Playboy, because it actually calls him a spendthrift, pleasure-loving society Playboy, which means he just blows money on shit as if he has money to spend forever and will never run out.
Yeah, and like he's basically he's using his Playboy persona to do detective work on this one, which,
yeah. I
mean, the detective work is more or less just checking in on his banker / friend.
Yeah.
Kind of weird that he's like, my banker needs to lighten up. I don't know.
I do prefer this, though, to before where he's just supposed to be like lazy and aloof.
Yeah.
He just doesn't want to do anything, and people are like, freaking Bruce Wayne. Although it does, when you, like, I'm going to bring up the Batman again because it's relevant. In the Batman, the way he plays Bruce Wayne is lazy and aloof, because people think he just doesn't want to do anything. And then the story sort of like pushes him in a direction where he realizes that Bruce Wayne is a tool as well, and he
Yeah.
can work as Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
So I wonder if they're gonna kind of in the next movie do that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting.
That.
The drunk driver thing kind of threw me for a loop. I didn't expect to see something like that so early in Batman stories, but they didn't really point out the fact that he was drunk so much as they did just the fact that he hit somebody.
Well, they said it.
They said he's tipsy, but
yeah.
but they're never like they never make out how bad it is or that it was like wrong that you shouldn't get behind the wheel.
Well, I think it's kind of implied. They got him drunk first, and they were gonna take him to a gambling den or something. They had their own people there to, rig the game so he doesn't notice, or he gambles terribly.
Yeah, I got that
Yeah.
too. Like they were gonna try to rip him off by
Yeah.
like gambling away his money. But then when they got him drunk and behind the wheel and he hit that kid, they were like, oh yeah, here's a better way to get money out of this guy.
Yeah, in the beginning, when Bruce is spying on him at the club, it doesn't say if he's a good gambler or not a good gambler.
That's true.
So I think it just kind of implied that he's a pretty decent gambler, but his friends were going to take advantage of him, try to get him drunk to gamble, and then the hit and run was a very convenient way to get some money out of him since that plan failed.
Mm-hmm. This issue also makes really good use of shadows, probably even more so than the last issue, but it uses a different color scheme. Like it does have those oranges and the maroons, but it uses more like pinks and magentas and bright lime greens, which looks really cool in here, but it gives it a completely distinct different vibe from the last issue. Instead of it feeling like this really Halloween-y film noir, it feels like the Adam West TV show because it has those bright pops of magenta and green and pink and blue.
We're still only 2 years in, so like every issue can add something new and something new drastic to Batman and the way things go. So
you can tell that they're like trying to evolve it in different ways and they're just trying to see what sticks. And a lot of them are really cool in their own ways, but some of them are definitely better than others.
Yeah.
Want to get into these panels here?
Mm-hmm.
You have put the first one on here, which I agree with. You want to talk about that one?
Yeah, well, mostly just because like it's such a cool image. It is the splash page of Batman lifting the guy up and throwing him at the other gangsters. He's on top of a truck. Batman's got so much power to him that he's able to lift the guy with just ease and then just throw him down. It's pretty cool.
I wonder if George Russo's did the majority of the drawing on these books because the art is so much better. And it still says by Bob Kane on there. But if you look in the background behind that semi-truck, the building says Russo's.
Neat. They were doing that back then.
Yeah. And like Knox, that's a recurring name that's been used a lot in Batman. So that's a reference to someone as well.
There's a lot of names that they use a lot, like Drake.
Yeah, I noticed that the first time I brought that up too. But also this issue, the splash page, does the same exact thing that the last issue did, where you have your splash page and then you have the first panel of the story on the bottom right-hand corner.
Yeah.
And this is one of probably like 4 issues that we read recently where the splash page isn't irrelevant, but rather the first page of the story. It actually starts on the splash page and continues on. So I like it both ways. I like when it's just like a teaser and when it's the beginning of the story.
Yeah, a lot of TV shows did that back then too. Like they'll start like from like the 50s. Like I've been watching Maverick.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, an old Western TV show, and a lot of episodes will start with just like a scene from later in the issue. I mean, later in the story.
Yeah, I love that. It's like a little teaser.
And then like the story starts. So that's kind of what they're kind of going for. At least this is pre-television, but it's the same basic premise.
Yeah. I picked this panel here. I picked these 2 panels. I think you probably would have picked them too. But it says, crime fighter, super foe of evil, the Batman has struck again. And then I just think this is really comical. Clearly it takes place right after the splash page. He's standing on top of this semi-truck, staring down at just this tangled mass of bodies that he just beat the crap out of. And their hats and guns are all over the ground. And he's just like, au revoir, gentlemen. I trust I have not intruded.
Yeah, just totally gloating over like meeting them.
Whatever, dude. You just beat these guys senseless. Now you're just gloating. And then the next panel I picked takes place shortly after that. And it says, up over the rooftops he flits. Dizzy heights hold no terror for the Batman. And I picked this one specifically because this is the first time, it's not the first time he's like swung from buildings. He's been doing that for a little while already. But this is the first time that he's swung from skyscrapers and it's shown the perspective of how high up he is. And those cars look tiny.
It feels like a later issue thing, like a later decade thing.
It seems like something you wouldn't do if you were just throwing a battering with a rope on the end. It seems like something you would do if you had like the gas-powered grapple gun. But it's really cool and it's nice to see that they're already showing that he no longer lives in like this like small city, but rather like this giant metropolis style city.
Yeah, we're getting more idea of what
Like the scale
this
of it.
version of New York, soon to be Gotham, is like.
Yeah. And then we both picked these next two, but you can go ahead and talk about them.
Yeah.
They're good.
So it's a 3-panel sequence of Batman running through the long hallway from under the barn and into wherever his house is in Gotham or New York. But it's just really cool. Just the first one, he pads silently through the tunnel below. He ascends another flight of steps at the end of the long tunnel and steps through another panel into a luxuriously furnished room. Hiya, Dickie, my lad.
Who says that?
Yeah.
That dialogue really threw me off.
You know what? I do like that it's got like also just this tonal whiplash between
Yeah.
like the like self-serious, sneaking
Yeah.
and subterfuge, and then he
Right.
busts in and he's like, "What's up, friend?"
What's up, bro?
Yeah,
Yeah. Like dark, mysterious Batman wakes his way through a cave and, hey man, what's going on?
exactly.
It's so funny.
Yeah. And I just love that like he's got this big underground tunnel which it starts in a barn somewhere out in the boonies.
I think it's on his property, but it's like way at the end of the
Yeah.
property.
And like as far as we know, Bruce probably still has like a penthouse in the middle of New York.
Yeah.
So like this is like got to be a miles long tunnel. And he's also got to start like he was in New York,
Yeah.
and then so he swings all the way to the boonies to a barn, and then he runs underground back to New York.
Right? Where's the Batmobile? Like, he
Yeah.
can't even drive the Batmobile through the tunnel. He just walks there slowly.
He walks, or like I don't know. I get the impression he runs, but like at points he's like, okay, I'm just gonna walk up these steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then last panel that I chose, it's when Batman busts through a door to knock out the guys that are blackmailing Roger.
Not a window,
Yeah.
a door.
It was
Heavy wooden door.
Mhm.
And it looks like he's sprinting through it too.
Yeah, like this. He like. Do you think his head was the first thing to impact the door, or
Based-
was his shoulder?
Based on the way it looks, I would say his head and shoulders probably went through at the same time.
Yeah. Suddenly, there is a sound of splintering wood, and a pair of broad shoulders crashes through the door. Okay.
Yeah.
If I had just reread it, we would have had the answer.
Yeah. I love that though. And he's like, sorry, but I don't think I'll bother to knock.
And then the guy goes, "Oh, mama, it's the Batman."
They also said Papa in this issue too. Batman was like, come to Papa.
Yeah.
Like, what's with the mamas and the papas? They got to get a little more creative with the slang in these books.
Yeah.
It is funny though. Like, oh, mama.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
This last thing I would expect this guy to say. Like,
Yeah.
he's not like crying for his life yet.
If this was a 2021 or 2022 Batman story, they'd be like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be, oh, mama.
Fuck, it's the Batman.
Right. DC Black Label.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
No, I mean, this issue was really fun. I feel like I didn't really need to get into thoughts on this one. I already kind of said like the artwork's better. There's even more heavy use of shadows. Talked about the colors a little bit. The scale of the city growing slowly. Batman's power being like his physical power be like fluctuating wildly. But I still really like this issue. I think probably if I had to pick between this issue and the last one, I think I like this issue more, but I like the villain in the last issue a lot.
Yeah, the last one had like a clear villain. This one's just like kind of a more. It's a little bit more memorable just because it's like this morality thing.
Mm-hmm.
You see Bruce having this interest in people outside of crime.
Yeah.
He doesn't want these people to have miserable lives.
Right. Yeah, that first issue really sort of develops a new villain, but not Batman or Robin. They feel more like they would have a couple issues ago, whereas this one more develops Batman, the layer, like Bruce Wayne and how he feels about people and the Playboy persona. So this one does more for developing Batman as a character, whereas the previous one just sort of like develops, or it just furthers the story, like the ongoing adventures of Batman.
All right, well, we're going to leave you there. Next episode, we're going to cover Detective Comics number 48. The story's called The Secret Cavern.
I wish that was about the Batcave, but it's not.
No. And then Batman number 3, story 2. This is going to be a doozy. The Ugliest Man in the World.
There's been a lot of ugly characters in these comics so far. This guy better be really ugly.
Yeah. Is he going to just kill you with a look?
That would be good.
Did he catch the ugly? We'll see. We'll find out next week. Be there.
See ya.